What you're watching is the beginning of an extraordinary 3-year journey, the construction of a handcrafted dovetail log cabin deep in the Canadian wilderness, entirely off the grid. This is traditional building at its finest, using timber sourced directly from the land. The first task in any wilderness build is reading the land. The builder must assess drainage, sun exposure, prevailing winds, and proximity to water. Every decision made here will affect the cabin for decades to come. Getting the site right is just as important as the building itself. Before a single log is placed, the ground must be prepared. For an off-grid log cabin, this typically means clearing vegetation, leveling the pad, and setting a foundation that can handle the enormous weight of a solid log structure. Frost depth in the Canadian wilderness can exceed 2 meters. Most decay-resistant timber is selected here. In many traditional builds, the sill logs sit on stone or concrete to keep them clear of the earth. dovetail notch is the signature joint of this building method. Unlike a saddle notch which simply cups over a round log, the dovetail is a precisely cut interlocking joint, wider at the bottom than the top, that actually tightens under the weight of the structure. It is one of the strongest corner joints in timber construction. Cutting a clean dovetail requires careful layout, sharp tools, and considerable patience. The builder must account for the natural variation in each log. No two are identical. The joint is scribed using a compass set to match the gap between logs, then cut with a chainsaw and cleaned with hand tools. Sometimes called the cope, is the long curved channel cut along the underside of each log. This groove seats over the log below, creating a weathertight seal. When properly cut and packed with insulation material like moss or fiberglass bat, this joint will last for generations. single 6-meter log can weigh several hundred kilograms. Moving logs into position requires levers, skids, come-alongs, and considerable ingenuity. Working alone or with a small crew in remote wilderness makes every lift a carefully choreographed effort. Watch the corner joints carefully as the walls grow. The dovetail corners lock each course to the next, preventing the logs from spreading outward under the lateral pressure of the roof. This self-tightening mechanism is what has kept traditional log structures standing for centuries across the northern forests. The windows and door openings require special attention. Unlike framed construction, log walls settle significantly over time as the logs dry and compress under load. Settling spaces, gaps left above door and window frames, allow the wall to drop without crushing the frames. Getting these spaces right is essential. The logs used for the gable ends, the triangular upper walls at each end of the building, are typically shorter, which makes them easier to lift. But the angles required to match the roof pitch must be cut precisely. Each gable log must be scribed, notched, and fitted just like those in the main walls. Midway through the build, the structural logic of the cabin becomes clear. The walls are becoming genuinely solid. This isn't a lightweight timber frame wrapped in cladding, but a massive monolithic structure where the walls themselves provide insulation, structure, and beauty simultaneously. Chinking, the material used to seal the gaps between logs, has evolved considerably over the centuries. Traditional builders used moss, clay, or animal hair mixed with lime. Modern log builders often use synthetic chinking compounds that remain flexible as the logs move seasonally. A good chink job is both functional and decorative. Rafter layout is a critical step. The builder must calculate the correct rafter length, the ridge height, the bird's mouth cut where each rafter meets the wall plate, and the tail cut at the eaves. In a remote wilderness build, every measurement must be right because there's no hardware store around the corner. As the roof structure takes shape, the building transforms. What was a collection of walls suddenly becomes a coherent shelter. The ridge pole, running the length of the cabin at the apex, must be perfectly level and centered. Even a small error here will show in the finished roof. The roof decking goes on quickly once the rafters are in place. Solid timber decking, planks laid across the rafters, provides a rigid, heavy base that will support either metal roofing, cedar shakes, or living sod. In the wilderness, metal roofing is the practical choice for its longevity and snow shedding ability. Metal roofing in the Canadian wilderness has to withstand extraordinary loads. Several meters of wet snow can weigh hundreds of kilograms per square meter. The steep pitch of this roof is deliberate. It sheds snow quickly, preventing dangerous load accumulation and reducing stress on the entire structure. With the roof on, the cabin becomes a weather-tight shell for the first time. This is a significant psychological milestone in any major building project. The builder can now work inside regardless of weather, fitting windows, hanging doors, and beginning the interior work that will make this a home. Door and window installation in a log cabin requires attention to settling allowances. The frames are attached to vertical posts, called splines or keys, set into slots cut into the log ends. The logs can slide down these keys as they settle, while the door and window frames remain square and functional. The interior of a log cabin is unique. The walls are the insulation, the structure, and the finish all in one. There is no drywall, no vapor barrier, no stud framing, just the beautiful, honest surface of the logs themselves. The smell of fresh cut timber fills the space for years after construction. Off-grid living in the Canadian wilderness requires careful systems planning. The builder must consider wood heating, water sourcing, typically a well or spring, waste management, food storage, and power generation. Solar panels and a wood cookstove are the workhorses of most wilderness homesteads. The floor system in a log cabin must accommodate settling just as the windows and doors do. Typically, the first floor is laid on beams set into the foundation, independent of the log walls. This allows the walls to settle freely without binding on the floor structure. The finishing details of a handcrafted log cabin are what separate a craftsman's work from ordinary construction. The hand-hewn flat surfaces on some logs, the carefully shaped corner treatments, the precise joinery, these are the marks of a builder who takes genuine pride in the permanence of what they are creating. A dovetail log cabin, properly built, will stand for well over 100 years. The logs will darken with age, the chinking will need periodic maintenance, and the roof will eventually need replacing, but the fundamental structure, the interlocked corners and the massive walls, will endure for generations. From the trees of the surrounding forest. There is a profound connection to place that comes from living in a home you've built yourself, from materials grown on the very land you inhabit. And here it stands, a complete, handcrafted dovetail log cabin in the heart of the Canadian wilderness. What began as raw forest has become a home, a shelter, a statement of what one determined person can build with skill, patience, and time. This is Peniac Wilderness.